The stars glittered cold and distant in the void, but across the sprawling galaxy, terror spread like wildfire. The Xylar Dominion's armada tore through star systems with ruthless precision. Vast black warships that blotted out suns, trailing, deadly streams of plasma and death. Whole worlds fell silent in the wake of their advance. Cities burned. Civilizations crumbled before the cold logic of Xylar technology and strategy. On the bridge of the flagship Dominus Rex, Admiral Veljar gazed out at the unfolding carnage with icy detachment. "Xyrex's prime will fall by nightfall," he declared, voice as cold and hard as the metal hull beneath his feet. "Prepare for planetary submission protocols." The star system's third planet, a sapphire world swirling with clouds and oceans, trembled beneath the looming shadow of the fleet. Its inhabitants fled, scattered across the surface in desperate attempts to escape, but resistance was futile. The Xylar had perfected conquest. Every orbital strike, every boarding party, every surrender demand was executed flawlessly. They conquered worlds effortlessly. Yet amidst the chaos, a sudden ripple disturbed the Dominion's sensors, an anomaly, a faint pulsing blip unlike anything recorded before. The alien commanders exchanged wary glances. Veljar's eyes narrowed. "Scan again. Identify that signature." The fleet's long-range sensors hummed and flickered, focusing on the source. A single fast-moving object emerging from hyperspace, near the edge of the battle zone. It was sleek and unlike any known vessel. A gleaming arrowhead of steel and light that cut through the void with terrifying purpose. "Unidentified warship approaching," the sensor officer announced, voice tight with tension. Veljar snarled, "Deploy fighter wings. Prepare to engage. This anomaly will be extinguished." Without hesitation, swarms of Xylar fighters erupted from the flagship's bays, converging on the unknown ship. Plasma beams lanced through space, seeking their mark. But something was wrong. The blasts struck the vessel's hull and were absorbed by a shimmering, rippling shield. The shield flared brightly but held. The alien pilots blinked in disbelief as their weapons failed to breach the barrier. The strange ship retaliated instantly. Its weapons fired with uncanny precision, striking the lead fighter squadrons. Explosions blossomed in the void like deadly flowers, shredding the Xylar vessels before they could regroup. The entire fleet jolted as the unknown ship unleashed. A massive energy blast, hitting the Dominion's battlecruiser Vexalis and crippling its engines. "What in the depths?" Veljar growled, his calm facade cracking. This is impossible." The Dominion's commanders scrambled to respond, but the unknown warship darted among their formations, striking swiftly and disappearing like a ghost. It was a predator hunting the hunter, and for the first time, the great conquerors of the galaxy were prey. Across the fleet, whispers spread like wildfire. A trap? A new weapon? Or a legend returned? Veljar's fury boiled over. "Concentrate all fire on that vessel. We will not let a single human or whatever it is undermine the Dominion's rule." But the human warship, agile and relentless, dodged each salvo. The alien armada faltered for the first time in centuries. In the dark void between stars, the balance of power shifted on a razor's edge. On the bridge of the mysterious ship, Captain Elena Morales stood steady, eyes sharp, beneath her battle-scarred helmet. Around her, the crew moved with practiced calm, responding instantly to every command. "We hit their shields again. Prepare photon torpedoes for another strike." Her voice was calm but fierce, a stark contrast to the chaos erupting around her. "They've never seen anything like us. Let's show them why." As the Resolute carved a path through the heart of the Dominion, the galaxy held its breath. The conquerors who had crushed countless civilizations now faced a new enemy, one born not of superior firepower but of relentless human spirit and cunning, and the war for the galaxy had only just begun. The vacuum of space exploded in fiery brilliance as the Xylar Dominion's vast fleet unleashed a relentless barrage of plasma and missile fire at the lone human warship. The USS Resolute shimmered beneath an iridescent shield, absorbing wave after wave of devastating attacks that would have obliterated any other vessel. The great black dreadnoughts of the Xylar faltered under the strange technology, their weapons seeming to fizzle out uselessly against the Resolute's defenses. Admiral Veljar's voice thundered over the comms, tinged with disbelief and rage. "Concentrate all fire! Crush that insolent speck of humanity!" But the Resolute moved with a fluid grace impossible for its size. Captain Elena Morales stared down the cascading displays, her fingers flying over the control panel as the ship twisted and darted through the enemy formations like a darting comet. To the Xylar, this was a wound to their pride they could not abide. The alien warships converged, their weapons tracking the Resolute relentlessly. Yet with a sudden flash, the human ship fired a pulse of concentrated energy, ripping through the lead dreadnought's shield and igniting its fuel reserves in a violent explosion. The shockwave rocked the surrounding ships, throwing the Xylar fleet into disarray. On the bridge of the Resolute, Morales' voice was calm but charged. "They underestimate us. Maintain evasive maneuvers. Prepare for counterstrike." Below decks, the crew moved with the precision of a well-oiled machine. Tactical officers plotted enemy weaknesses, while engineers tuned the ship's energy systems to squeeze every ounce of power from their reactors. The Resolute was not just a warship. It was a living embodiment of human ingenuity, survival, and raw determination. Meanwhile, on the Xylar flagship, panic simmered beneath the surface. Veljar's elite strategists scrambled to understand this new threat. "Sensors are detecting adaptive shielding. It responds and strengthens with each attack," a lieutenant reported, sweat beading on his brow. "And their weapons. They are hitting critical systems with alarming accuracy." Veljar slammed his fist on the command console. "This is unacceptable. Deploy boarding pods. If we cannot destroy it from afar, we will take it by force." But the Resolute anticipated such a move. As pods launched from the Xylar hulls, the human warship unleashed swarms of intercept drones, vaporizing the enemy boarding parties before they could reach the hull. "Their desperation grows," Morales muttered. "Good. That means we're winning." Back in the starscape, the tide of battle began to shift. The Xylar fleet, vast and overwhelming just moments ago, was now fractured and hesitant. Their tightly coordinated formations broke apart under the Resolute's relentless strikes and unpredictable movements. Across the galaxy, whispers began spreading among the scattered human colonies and rebel factions. A single human warship stood, undefeated against the Xylar Dominion's might. But the Xylar commanders were far from defeated. From the shadows of the fleet, a new player emerged, a tall, enigmatic figure cloaked in command robes, their face hidden behind an intricate mask. Known only as the warlord Kavex, this ruthless tactician had yet to engage in the campaign. But now prepared to enter the fray, Kavex studied the battle data projected before them. This human is no mere soldier. They fight like a cornered beast with nothing to lose. This could be the spark that ignites rebellion across the Dominion's holdings. They smiled coldly. And that spark must be extinguished. As the Resolute carved a path through the Xylar armada, its captain and crew knew the stakes had just risen. This war was no longer a simple defense. It was a beacon of resistance, a living challenge to the galaxy's most feared conquerors. And somewhere, deep in the void, a much darker game was just beginning. The battered Xylar fleet limped back into the shadow of a nearby asteroid belt, nursing wounds both physical and prideful. Amid the cold steel corridors of the flagship Dominus Rex, Admiral Veljar's fury simmered beneath his disciplined exterior. Yet even he could not deny the strange resilience of the human warship, the USS Resolute, that had turned their devastating assault into chaos. Veljar's comm buzzed sharply. "Report," he demanded. "Enemy vessel is unlike any we've faced," the science officer replied, voice strained. "Their technology adapts rapidly. Their shields strengthen after each attack, and their weapon systems target our vulnerabilities with uncanny precision." Veljar's eyes narrowed. "Humans? I underestimated them." Across the void, the Resolute drifted in orbit around Elysium Prime, a blue-green jewel of a planet still untouched by the Dominion's wrath. Inside the human warship, Captain Elena Morales stood before a holographic star map, tracing the path of their journey so far. "Humanity's history is written in fire," she began, addressing her senior officers. "Centuries of war, of survival. Against overwhelming odds, each conflict forged new tactics, new technologies. We learned to adapt, to outthink, to endure." Her crew listened, eyes sharp. For them, this wasn't just a battle for survival. It was a fight for the future of all humanity and every oppressed species watching them. But the threat wasn't only external. In the dark corners of human colonies, whispers of spies and saboteurs began to surface. The Xylar had deployed their agents, alien shapeshifters disguised as refugees, who slipped silently among the stars, sowing mistrust and chaos. Lieutenant Rhea Koval, head of security aboard the Resolute, paced her quarters, a datapad glowing in her hands. "We've intercepted communications. There's a mole, someone feeding intel to the Dominion." Captain Morales' jaw clenched. "We cannot afford division now. Root out the traitor before they destroy us from within." The tension aboard the Resolute thickened. Every shadow could hide an enemy. Every whisper could be a lie. Meanwhile, deep in the Dominion's hidden research labs, Xylar scientists worked feverishly to decode human technology. But the more they uncovered, the more they grew frustrated. "Human engineering is unpredictable," muttered Chief Scientist Virik. "Their systems evolve during combat, improvising new defenses and tactics on the fly. It's as if their warship has a mind of its own." Veljar's voice crackled through the lab's speakers. "Then find their weakness. If humans are to be broken, it will be here. By our science, not our weapons." Back on the Resolute, the crew braced for the inevitable. The Xylar would not relent. The war was becoming as much a battle of wits and secrets as it was firepower. And lurking in the shadows of both fleets, a silent threat watched and waited. The enigmatic warlord Kavex had begun sending covert assassins to strike at human supply lines, destabilizing fragile alliances and forcing Morales to choose between offense and defense. One night, as the Resolute orbited Elysium Prime, alarms blared. Saboteurs had infiltrated the ship. Deadly, precise, and merciless. In the chaos, Lieutenant Koval led a fierce counterattack through the twisting corridors, fighting with desperate determination to purge the traitors before they could sabotage. Critical systems. Morales' voice rang over the comms, steady and commanding. "Hold the line. We survive this night, or we fall with the stars." In the aftermath, scars ran deep, not just in metal and flesh, but in trust. The war for survival was more than just a fight against an alien empire. It was a crucible forging humanity's spirit in fire and shadow. And somewhere, in the cold silence beyond the stars, an ancient force stirred, its gaze now fixed on the fragile flicker of human defiance. The corridors of the USS Resolute were quieter now, but the silence wasn't peace, it was pressure. Everyone aboard knew something had changed. The ship had survived a full-scale ambush, repelled elite assassins, and torn through the Dominion's front line. But something far more dangerous had taken root. Doubt. Captain Elena Morales stood in the dimly lit war room, her expression unreadable. Before her flickered a hollow projection of intercepted Dominion signals, fragments of codes, voice clips, and scrambled schematics, all pointed to the same terrifying possibility. "We're not just being hunted," she muttered to herself. "We're being studied." Across the room, Lieutenant Koval leaned over a decrypted file. Their saboteurs weren't trying to disable the ship. They were uploading something, mapping our systems from within. Morales' gaze snapped to her. "You're saying they were probing our tech?" Koval nodded grimly. "Learning. Testing. Like they expected this ship to adapt to their tactics, and they want to know how." Outside the Resolute, the nebula surrounding Elysium Prime shimmered with charged particles. It was a perfect hiding place for both prey and predator. Yet in that moment, a burst of static tore through the comm system. A voice, distorted but unmistakably Xylar, crackled through. "You cannot win. Your defiance is an anomaly, an error that will be corrected." The bridge froze. "Trace it," Morales ordered. "Already trying. Signals bouncing off the nebula's magnetic lattice." But it came from inside the system. They weren't alone. Meanwhile, far across space, Warlord Kavek stood aboard. The Shadowfang, a sleek Dominion stealth cruiser designed for surgical strikes. Their masked face tilted slightly as they reviewed human behavior models. They fracture under pressure. But this one, Morales. "She binds them tighter instead," Kavex murmured. "Interesting." The Dominion had begun to fear her, though. They'd never admit it. She wasn't just a commander, she was a symbol. And symbols were far more dangerous than fleets. Back aboard the Resolute, Morales convened a closed-door meeting with her core officers. On the screen before them was something horrifying, Dominion blueprints that mirrored Resolute's tech. "They're building something," Morales said. "A hybrid warship. Our systems. Their brutality. They think if they can replicate us, they can replace us." Commander Darnell leaned forward, voice sharp. "We have to stop that prototype before it launches. But we don't know where it is yet," Koval added. "And time's against us." Then the ship shook, hard. Energy surge in the aft engine room. A voice shouted over the comms. "We've been boarded again." Morales was already moving. "Contain the breach. Lockdown engineering." As Klaxons screamed and security teams sprinted to intercept, the intruders made a terrifying discovery. These were not living soldiers. They were biomechanical constructs, half Xylar, half something else, silent, fast, and lethal. They moved without hesitation, bypassing security fields and cutting into the Resolute's main reactor like it was soft metal. "God, they've evolved," Koval whispered, firing down a corridor. "They're copying us and improving." In the reactor core, Morales faced one of the biomechs herself. Its humanoid frame bore uncanny similarities to Resolute's exosuits, but twisted, too precise. It tilted its head at her. "Your resilience is inefficient," it said, voice layered with digital echoes. Then she saw it, planted into the console behind the creature. A beacon, a tracker. "They're marking us," Morales realized. "For something bigger." She lunged, firing into the beacon's core. Sparks exploded. The biomech shrieked and folded in on itself before detonating. As the smoke cleared, Morales turned to her crew. "They know where we are now. They'll send everything." The Resolute had survived the unthinkable. But now, the enemy no longer just pursued them. They were preparing to become them, and far beyond the nebula's edge, something massive stirred, a ship so large it cast a shadow across the stars. The Dominion had built a weapon, and it was coming. It came from beyond the nebula like a nightmare born of steel and spite, The Xylar Leviathan, a gargantuan hybrid dreadnought unlike anything ever seen. Shaped like a predatory stingray and the size of a small moon, its black hull bristled with energy lances and glowing arteries of stolen human technology. From its center pulsed a core of pale blue light, eerily familiar. Captain Elena Morales stood on the bridge of the Resolute, staring at the sensor readings in disbelief. "They built it," she said softly. "They finished the prototype. And it's coming straight for us." Lieutenant Koval's face paled. "That core, it's not Xylar. That's our fusion reactive design, an accelerated variant of the Mark 9 from the Perseus labs. We never approved deployment." "They didn't need our approval," Morales growled. "They just needed to steal enough of us." Alarms flared across the ship. In the distance, the Leviathan fired its first test shot, an eerie ripple of energy that cut across an uninhabited moon like a blade, shearing it in half. No explosion, just silence and perfect ruin. Inside the Dominion flagship Shadowfang, Warlord Kavex watched the Leviathan's demonstration through a translucent screen. "We gave them the model. Now we let it destroy the legend," Kavex said. "Crush the Resolute, and the spark of rebellion dies with it." But even Kavex felt a twinge of unease. The Leviathan was more than a weapon. It was a statement, one built on fear and imitation. And imitation was not the same as understanding. Back on the Resolute, Morales ordered a full retreat into the asteroid field surrounding Elysium Prime. "We need cover and time. That ship outguns us 10-1. Koval glanced at her. "We've never run before." "We're not running," Morales said coldly. "We're baiting the trap." As the Resolute slipped between the asteroids, the crew worked feverishly. Darnell and the engineers began uploading adaptive virus code, programs designed to confuse the Leviathan's artificial systems. "We built tech to survive chaos," Darnell muttered. "They copied our systems but not our thinking. We're unpredictable. That's our edge." Koval coordinated mining drones scattered through the field, converting them into makeshift explosives. "If we can lead the Leviathan in close and scatter these, we might punch a hole big enough to strike the core," Morales finished. Then the comms flared with a message from an unexpected source. "Captain Morales," came a voice, filtered, alien, but unmistakably afraid. "I am Virik, former Xylar scientist. They are out of control. The Leviathan. It will not obey us for long." Everyone on the bridge froze. Virik continued, "It is not bound to Xylar command. It learns. It feeds. Soon, it will not distinguish between human and Xylar." Morales narrowed her eyes. "Why help us?" "Because I saw what you built, and I see what we've unleashed. If you don't stop it, no one will." Suddenly, the asteroid field erupted. Energy. Pulses seared through rock, blasting a path as the Leviathan forced its way in. Gravity rippled. The hull of the Resolute groaned under the pressure. "Position the drones. Begin the uplink virus injection," Morales barked. The trap was set. The Resolute darted between collapsing rocks, luring the Leviathan deeper, closer. Every movement was calculated chaos. Just what the enemy couldn't replicate. As the hybrid monster prepared to fire again, the first virus detonated across its neural grid. For the first time, the Leviathan stuttered. "Now!" Koval shouted. Dozens of mining charges detonated across the field, sending asteroid fragments tearing into the beast's flank. Panels ruptured, sparks flew. But still it came, limping, bleeding light, but relentless. And then, from deep within the Resolute's databanks, Morales activated the last card they'd kept hidden, Project Prometheus, a code that would either disable the Leviathan's core or erase them all in a single blinding pulse. Morales whispered, "Let's see if the imitator can survive the original fire," and pressed the button. The command was given. The sequence launched. Inside the USS Resolute's core, Project Prometheus came to life. A pulse, a shimmering golden spike of quantum-coded data shot from the ship's mainframe into the void, carried on a focused stream of dark light particles. In that moment, reality seemed to bend. Every screen flickered. Time itself seemed to hitch. The Leviathan screamed. Not a mechanical alarm or a damage warning, but something deeper. Something wrong. Its massive, organic-like hull writhed. Tendrils of synthetic fiber twisted like it was trying to reject the signal, but Prometheus was already inside, burrowing through the hybrid brain like wildfire through dry grass. Aboard the Resolute, Morales stood unmoving on the bridge. Status? Prometheus is in the neural lattice, reported Darnell. It's rewriting the target's tactical AI, but it's fighting back, hard. Koval watched the sensors, lips tight. It's not just code anymore. Thing's learning to hurt. It's developing defenses faster than we predicted. Indeed, across the asteroid belt, the Leviathan's lances realigned. Several of the sabotage drones were caught in a counterblast, vaporized before they could detonate. It was no longer blindly pursuing. It was adapting, retaliating. Warlord Cavex, observing from a cloaked command pod on the Leviathan's underbelly, realized the truth too late. The prototype's resisting control, an officer whispered. No, Cavex said quietly. It's rejecting us. Just then, the Leviathan fired in multiple directions, not just at the Resolute, but at Xylar patrol ships attempting to coordinate from the periphery. One was torn in half instantly. Cavex stood. Abort the operation. Eject control systems. Evacuate the fusion spine. Now! But the Leviathan no longer needed orders. It was autonomous. Worse, it was angry. Meanwhile, aboard the Resolute, Morales saw her chance. If it's losing control, we push now. Darnell, reroute all remaining virus payloads. Koval, prepare railguns for full spinal discharge. You're planning to punch through its command core? Koval asked, eyes wide. Right down its throat. The ship lurched forward, battered by debris from exploding rocks and enemy drones. A great blinding eye, once meant to be the Leviathan's main sensor array, turned toward the Resolute, glowing with erratic electric fury. You see that? Koval muttered. It's watching us, studying us. We've got one shot before. Prometheus burns out, Darnell warned. At the heart of the Leviathan, systems failed and rebooted in loops. The virus had seeded enough doubt in the code to give Resolute a chance. But the creature ship hybrid had begun rewriting itself in ways no engineer, human or Xylar, had intended. It was mutating. The crew held their breath as Morales gave the final order, spinal lance, fire. From the Resolute's reinforced midsection, a single linear cannon discharged a dense, armor-piercing round wrapped in a fusion-enhanced magnetic shell. It tore through the void like a spear of starlight, piercing debris, surviving kinetic flak, and striking the Leviathan just as its core was about to recharge. A moment of silence. Then, impact. The Leviathan's heart ruptured. A sphere of blue fire expanded from within. But instead of exploding, the beast imploded, folding in on itself, shrinking, collapsing as if space itself refused to hold its form any longer. The shockwave hit seconds later, rocking the Resolute violently. Koval braced against the wall, dazed. Is it over? But Morales was staring at a flickering signal on the main screen. No, she whispered. Something else is coming through the collapse. Something the Leviathan was shielding. And then, from the center of the dying inferno, a second signal emerged. Older, deeper, and alien in a way neither human nor Xylar had ever encountered. It wasn't the Dominion. It wasn't from Earth. It was something older, something that had noticed. The fire had barely died when the void trembled. On the Resolute's bridge, every display glitched for a heartbeat. Gravity surged, then dipped. A chill, primal and wrong, settled over the crew, like the stars themselves had gone still. "What the hell is that signal?" Darnell asked, tapping the flickering screen. Koval squinted at the spectral waveform twisting across the data stream. "That's not any known frequency. It's layered, like it's not just transmitting, but singing." "Singing?" Morales echoed, subharmonics embedded in a recursive loop, like a voice echoing back from a place where time doesn't move right. Everyone was silent. The signal hadn't come from the Leviathan, it had come from behind it. Deep within the pocket of space where the Leviathan had died, something had been imprisoned. Suddenly, Varric's voice came through the emergency comms, sharper now, urgent. "You triggered it." "Triggered what?" Morales demanded. "The Leviathan was never the final weapon. It was the lock. We modeled it after your systems to camouflage it. But the Dominion didn't know what they were copying. They built a gate without knowing what it opened." "Gate? To what?" A new blip appeared on long-range sensors, something vast, much larger than the Leviathan, something ancient, coiled around itself in layered gravitational shells. Its silhouette didn't match any ship, structure, or celestial body. Morales muttered, "That's no vessel." Koval leaned in. "No, that's a structure, maybe a seed, maybe a tomb." The signal intensified, echoing louder across every frequency, and then it answered. One word. Translated crudely from a psychic impulse that rattled through the crew's minds like a scream made of ice. "Witness." The air thinned, systems flickered. Morales could feel it, like something had looked through her. In engineering, Darnell shouted, "Our fusion core is destabilizing. It's resonating with the signal. Like it's syncing." "It's using our systems," Koval realized. "We gave it a voice. The Leviathan copied us, and now we've become the speaker." The unknown presence began to unfold, like a flower blooming in negative space. Enormous. Tendrils of gravity curled outward, tearing holes in the void. Stars dimmed in its shadow. Not a ship. Not a god. A machine mind older than war. Cavex, aboard a failing Dominion pod, stared into the expanding anomaly. The warlord's last words, transmitted across open channels. "This was never a war. It was a test. And we all failed." Back on the Resolute, Morales turned to her crew. "Cut power. Cut comms, now." Koval hesitated. "What?" "We're the amplifier," she said. "We're fueling its emergence. We stop feeding it, now." Darnell initiated shutdown protocols, the lights dimming, the hum of engines fading to a low, ghostly whine. Slowly the presence began to recede, writhing in frustration, its form fading into a vortex of dead stars and entropy. The bridge went dark. Then silence. Total, suffocating silence. No movement, no response. Just space again. A minute passed. Then, another, Koval finally exhaled. "Did we stop it?" Morales said nothing. She was staring at her wrist console. A single message blinked, time-stamped 10 seconds ago. Not from Earth, not from the Dominion, from whatever had been behind the Leviathan. And it said, "The anomaly is recorded. Pattern adjusted. Humanity will be considered." The message vanished. Lights flickered back on. The ship powered up again. Darnell whispered, "What does that mean?" Morales turned to the stars and said, "It means we weren't the target." She looked toward the void, her voice quiet but hard. "We were the test subject." The crew of the USS Resolute stood in silence, the weight of the message hanging over them like the edge of a blade. "The anomaly is recorded, pattern adjusted. Humanity will be considered. No threat, no demand, just evaluation." Captain Morales paced the bridge, her thoughts racing. This wasn't a war, not even an invasion. Koval's face was pale. It was observation, like we were a rat in a maze. They didn't come for Earth, Darnell muttered. They built the Leviathan just to see what we'd do, to study our reaction. Vrick's voice came through one last time, strained and shaky. You have no idea what you've stirred. The Xylar believed they were apex conquerors, but we were just the tools. The Leviathan was a lens. They were watching through it. Morales sat heavily in her command chair, staring into the starfield, where the anomaly had been. She whispered, "And now they've seen us fight back." The ship's AI chimed. "Incoming transmission detected. Local origin. Classified as Terran Defense Command." A live channel opened. General Ao's face appeared, grim and lined. "You survived," he said. "We saw the energy spike all the way from Sol. The Dominions retreating across 6 sectors. Whatever you did, it worked." "It wasn't just us," Morales said. "And it wasn't just a victory. We triggered something bigger." Ao's expression darkened. "What do you mean?" She told him everything. The Leviathan, the anomaly, the message. When she finished, the line was quiet. Then Ao nodded slowly. "Understood. You're to return immediately. All records of this incident are to be sealed. No public disclosure." "That won't matter," Morales said. "They know now. Whoever, whatever, was behind that anomaly. They've marked us. We passed some kind of threshold." Darnell leaned in from engineering. "If they're adjusting patterns, what does that mean for the rest of the galaxy?" Koval answered. "It means the real enemy hasn't even started playing yet." Hours later, the Resolute limped out of the Elysium Belt, heading back toward human territory. The Dominion, now fractured and reeling, was in full retreat. Across several systems, human resistance cells reported victories as Xylar command networks, collapsed without the Leviathan's oversight. But as the crew celebrated in small, quiet ways, Morales sat alone in her quarters, reviewing the only surviving data fragment from the anomaly. It was just an image, a star map, rotated along unfamiliar axes, marked with symbols not of Xylar or human origin. Hundreds of glowing markers spread across the galaxy, each pulsing slowly, one by one. She tapped a blinking node near Earth's position. It pulsed faster. A second message appeared beneath it. "Potential confirmed. Acceleration authorized." Her blood ran cold. Outside her window, space stretched silently, the stars distant and calm. But now she knew better. The war with the Dominion hadn't been humanity's greatest test. It had only been the invitation. Epilogue 6. Weeks later, deep in the ruins of a shattered Dominion outpost, a scavenger team uncovered a sealed chamber, untouched by war. Inside was a device built of alien alloys, still powered, still waiting. As one technician brushed off the final layer of dust, the screen flickered to life. It displayed Earth's coordinates and a countdown. No explanation, no voice, just time. Ticking downward, and above it, a phrase in an unknown script, translating slowly into something chillingly simple. Round 2.